Hi there. Hi, guys. I think I'm here. I had a 1 minute technical difficulty. I think I am okay though now. Um, okay, let me just check. Okay, let me just check myself that the voice is okay. Hmm. Okay, I'm just gonna speak for a few seconds. Hello, am I speaking through this microphone? Hello, sound. Okay, I think the right microphone is turned on. Okay, so you know the idea. If anything is not working correctly, just let me know. I think it should be working. I just did this live yesterday in Spanish. Everything was great. And I'm using a microphone here. I have a special setup. This was a gift from Miko, Matthias's brother. Miko is the guy who maintains our website. He gave me this setup here, so I'm going to be using this, and also the webcam. It's his, it's his gift as well. So thank you very much, Miko. Just in case if you are watching, I thought Gosia lives in Spain. No, I used to live in Spain. Now I am in Finland. So let me just check for something for a second because something wasn't right 100%. Okay, I think it's working. I think it's working, but things sometimes get strange during my lives. So anyway, this is a live. I'm going to talk about I'm talk about I'm going to talk about DNA and some few points that I liked and that got my attention that seemed important to me. However, let me clarify right away that I am in no way any expert on the subject, nor am I capable, I think, of answering any more detailed questions about this. And just to tell you right away, I don't have anyone online right away, so I can't pass any questions. So I'm just going to do my best to interpret the information how I view it and what was important to me. Okay, so just keep that in mind. As you see, I have no bangs fringe in British English, and this is because something overcame me a few days ago, and I had this desire suddenly, or my forehead had the desire to like have space. I felt overwhelmed suddenly with the hair going into my ear. I felt like some kind of weight on my head and my face, and it's like my face wanted to breathe. So I pulled it away, and right away I started to feel like good, like it was fresh and I was breathing. So whatever. I have a huge forehead. That's why I I like to have a fringe. But let's see how this new look goes. Okay. So this is it for now. And just to say quick hello to a few people in the chat. Hello there, Ken and Rafael, everybody in bulk who is a moderator. If you see those blue wrenches there in the chat, they are moderators. Thank you very much for being here and being supportive and being part of this project and being part of this team. Thank you, Michelle, Ocean Dell, Shannon, Rafael, Arizona Raven, Thomasine, and everybody else who is not in the chat. Just it's very important also to mention people who are not in the chat but who are viewing us from their phones, from their smart TVs, or whatever they have. So let me now divide my screen as I am going to prepare with my points, of course. I always have my points. Now, I hope you enjoyed the two last videos on the subject of the DNA. And the next video I will make is not specifically about the DNA, but it's going to have something to do with that. It's going to be about the human genome and how they are supposedly recollecting the DNA of all the humans or something like that. It's going to be a video about that, not a very long one. And I really enjoyed the videos on the DNA. It was fascinating to me. And actually, I feel I want to dedicate myself to the study of the DNA and all this and how it works. I don't know why, but it fascinates me for some reason. I think if I ever go back, if I go back, when I go back to Taygeta, I'm going to go into that field among any other field that I find useful and interesting. And what else was I going to say? Oh, yes. Someone, I don't know if in an English channel or a Spanish channel, sometimes I see some complaints and people are saying, oh, you're repeating your questions in the videos. Well, yeah, I repeat questions. I do recognize that. But I do that because I still don't understand the topic. I think it's quite clear that if you don't understand something, you're not just going to pretend that you got it, like you are trying to look like you are smart and intelligent and you understand everything and just let it go. But you're going to ask again from another angle. So this way, Yazhi, which she always does, can give us more detailed answer from yet another angle. And this way, the whole topic is becoming more and more understandable. And I think it's very helpful to you as well, even if I do repeat certain questions. Bradford says no complaining allowed, new rule. Well, no, it's okay. You can complain. I'm just explaining why I do that. And if I was embarrassed about not understanding something and having to repeat the question, I would just take it out of the transcript, for example. But I don't care. I'm actually, I think it's a very good quality of mine that I am able to admit, hey, I'm still not understanding. Let's go over this again. And this way you can have a more in-depth answers from Yazhi. So I think it's very good. Uh, Thanks everybody in the chat. Remember, I'm not going to be watching very much the chat, but I have my one eye on it. Okay, so without further ado, let's just go into the topic right away. I don't want to take too much of your time tonight. And well, let's go through different points. Okay, so the first point that was important and that Yazhi mentioned is that DNA is not something fixed. You're not going to have the same DNA over your lifetime. It's always dynamic, and movement is the only characteristics that really defines life and existence. And this reflects in the DNA. In the DNA, it's always changing, always evolving, and reacting to your movement within the consciousness field, in the etheric side, reacting to new ideas, to new perception, new thoughts, to your expansion. So it keeps overwriting itself all the time over time. Its values and vibrations always change. It's something very dynamic. So that's very important. Oh, Tammy is asking, are we getting a fifth strand DNA upgrade on April the 6th? I'm afraid that's not how it works. We actually talked about these external supposed ET upgrades coming from somewhere outside. This is something internal. This is something that you yourself activate and turn on as you expand. And this is also one of the important points to mention later on, that first you expand and then the activation of the DNA happens. It's not the other way around. First you change and then the DNA reflects your change. So there are some here and there upgrades done by, for example, the Greys, the gardeners, the positive ones, who are doing some little tweaking here and there to maybe upgrade something in the memory, field. But it's very specific to the case. It's not something done on a massive level. Anyway, I'm going to stop looking at the questions right now just so I can get through the points. So the DNA is something that is always evolving and changing. And it is a reflection of who we are and where. Basically, the DNA is who we are and what formed who we are. It's a registry of who we are and what formed us, what is forming us. It's a reflection of us in the etheric field, of our soul, of our katra, like they like to say it. So it's the first step to manifestation of a soul in the physical plane. Whatever we are, whatever movements occur within that higher realm of who we are, it's going to be reflected in the DNA. So now, if the DNA is artificially altered, artificially, meaning that today actually Robert talked to Yazhi, and well, I was there too, and he asked, can the DNA be altered naturally? Because you are saying artificially altered. Well, naturally, she said, that's just simply life. You naturally evolve, you naturally expand, and so your DNA will be altered, but it's not going to be artificial. It's just going to be naturally reflecting your change. So it doesn't happen. There is no natural alteration. It's just how it changes naturally. That's just the order of things. But if it's artificially altered, that's when it separates us from who we are and from our heritage. So we cannot access fully who we are on that other level and who we were, what formed us. We cannot access our memories, which is our cosmic heritage. But now it's very important here. When the DNA is altered artificially, yes, it may affect, and it is affecting our link with our soul, so we cannot fully access who we are. The DNA cannot reflect who we are, but it doesn't change who we are in our consciousness. Only the link on the physical level is damaged, but it doesn't change, it doesn't alter and damage who we are as a soul. That can never be distorted or changed in that way. So when Yazhi says that when the DNA is artificially altered, it changes who we are, but it doesn't change who we are as a soul. That can never be destroyed. It just separates us in a way from interpreting and bringing into the manifestation the fullness of who we are. But our soul cannot be destroyed. So here, Yazhi, even yesterday, I had that clarification with her. And she said, yes, I only mean the physical part, just that part. Nothing on the physical side damages the I on the etheric side. Now, except the experiences themselves that could be seen as damage, the traumas and so on, for example. But as Mari explained, if a bad experience marks you and traumatizes you, or only serves as a contrast for further expansion, that will depend only on you, your ideas, and your frequency. So the DNA damages the DNA, you on the physical side. It cannot damage your soul, but the experience and the change of perception and ideas that may result from that DNA alteration, yes, could be carried with you later on within your soul if that damage is intense enough. So the experience coming from the DNA alteration can be carried on. Because I was also wondering, okay, if the damage of the DNA is only on the physical, that means that when we die and we get and we what? I'm sorry, I'm switching languages from Spanish in my head. And we get born in a new body, we get new, fresh DNA. We reset ourselves, right, in a physical way. So our DNA in that next incarnation will be new and not damaged. So we will be able to bring fully into manifestation who we are, like we resetted ourselves. And Yazhi says, yes, that's true. That's correct. That DNA damage stays with your present incarnation only. However, again, if that damage was strong enough and influenced your experience, then that experience will be taken to the next life. Yes, Sauli, that's a relief that Katra will be unchanged by artificial manipulations. Yes, it is. But like I said, if it's a strong manipulation that affected you on your mental level, like some kind of, perception change, experience, trauma, then that experience will be taken, but not the physical damage. All right. Yeah, exactly. This is what Yazhi said about this actually today. If it's an artificial damage, it remains in the present incarnation only, but there remains a learning about what was damaged. So what you learn from that, you take it with you. Well, now what's Katra, Sirena of the Void? That's the word they use for soul. They don't like the word soul so much because it has these religious associations. And they're among the Federation races, and not just Taigetans, but other races. As far as I understand, they use that word Katra. It's like your essence, your soul, basically. All right. So now, knowing all this about the DNA and how by having a full link with our higher self occurs through our DNA, now we understand why they are so interested in poisoning everything around us, poisoning our environment, our air, our food, and all that, because they want to keep us detached and separated from the full access to who we are. They want to keep us stronger in the matrix, so no signal from the soul can enter through the DNA. Because what is DNA? It is an antenna that brings into the physical who you are, and with that, memories of who you are and who you were. So if they damage the DNA, that DNA will not be able to bring into the physical manifestation and into your mental interpretation of yourself what you were before and of life outside this earth. And that's why they are so interested in keeping us separated from our katra by damaging our DNA. By damaging our DNA, because that would mean the end of the 3D. You would realize that there is more to life. You would realize there's more to you, that you had other lives and you had other incarnations. So that would be basically the end of this established reality here on Earth. And this also brings us to the subject of the Federation. Yazhi Swaruu has been talking about the Federation recently. She's going through this Federation series. And here, it would be clear to understand that Federation, as they want to maintain this 3D matrix status on Earth for experience, for souls, then that would be in their interest to have our DNA dormant. Because if our DNA is not dormant, then we have full access to the memories and the 3D game is over. So that's what happens here with this inactive DNA. Inactive DNA, that's access to all our past memories, and conscious and unconscious. And not just past memories, it's just other types of information that we have on the soul level. So DNA and how much access we have to it has to do with the veil of forgetfulness and limited perception or not. And activation of the DNA, what is that? It's awakening to other realities, other thoughts, other perceptions. As you expand, you activate your DNA. But here, an important point, awakening and expansion, growth must happen first. And then the DNA activation happens as a symptom. Not the other way around. If you develop, for example, a capacity, an ability like telepathy, for example, it is not because your DNA was activated and that's why you develop telepathy, but on the contrary, first you develop telepathy and that is reflected in your DNA, because what happens and what moves you on the consciousness level in the etheric side how you expand on a mental level gets reflected in the physical. It's always this way. It's never the other way around. So whatever DNA displays as you is a symptom of what your soul is doing, on the other side, on the other level. So that's an important point, because many times, there are these services of DNA activation through the internet or something, or someone sells you the idea that your DNA can be activated, and I don't exactly know how they operate, so I cannot fully say, okay, this is not how it works, because I don't know exactly what they are doing. But from this information, I can only deduct that it doesn't work, because there's nothing from the external side that can come act on your DNA, and then that will reflect as a consciousness expansion. It has to be the other way around. DNA is only a reflection of who you are and what your soul is doing. So you be the change, and then your DNA changes with it. DNA only reflects the change that is happening within you. Like, for example, all of us who have been following this work and this project for such a long time, and studying this information, and always, contemplating these ideas, metaphysical stuff, for sure our DNA is already reflecting some of that change. All of us here in this group. I will actually mention some of this a bit later on, about how fast the mental expansion is reflected in the DNA here in 3D. How fast? Okay, that's going to be one of the next questions that I actually asked. Who was that? Athena, I think, or Yazhi. I think Yazhi, yes. And she answered. So I hope everything is clear for now, and that everything is working. Okay, just a short break. Thank you, Mick, for reminding people to like the video. Thank you very much. Thanks, Deborah. Thanks, guys. Now, another point that was mentioned by Yazhi as very important, well, it's kind of like what I said already, is that the DNA acts as an antenna. It's an antenna that reacts to the stimuli on the etheric side of your soul. So that antenna picks up the signal of whatever is happening on the etheric side of your katra, and that brings into physical every aspect of you, and gets reflected by, in the DNA reading. So every crystalline part of the DNA is activated when it receives a stimulus from the etheric side. But here, an important point, it doesn't go in, that signal, through the pineal gland, like it is very often thought, but it is received through every cell, and that means through DNA. So the signal from the etheric soul that you are is received by DNA, not by pineal gland. And we did the video about the pineal gland. It was some time ago. It was given by Anneka. So if you are interested actually to see what role specifically the pineal gland has, then go see that transcript on the website, or see that video. But let me just read you just a short paragraph, just to fit this into the story of the pineal gland. What pineal gland does, what is its role here. So Anneka says this: the signal of what is not of the material world passes or enters the body through every living cell, DNA, especially the nerve cells. And then the pineal gland helps the conscious part of the person to understand these experiences, to remember things, or to interpret them. So the pineal gland is a translator of something ununderstandable into something understandable. A translator of something subtle into something understandable to your perception. It's a signal modulator. So that's just a very short description of what the pineal gland is. Very, very, very short. It is better described in that video that was done, information given by Aneka, okay? But it's the DNA in every single cell that receives that signal. So the whole body is important as a package. Rafael, go Professor Gosia. I don't know. I feel there's so much more to understand on this topic, but I did feel like I wanted to make a pause before I publish the next video, because I think the information deserved the pause. The pause meaning making this live. Okay. So now let's go to the question that I did. I think it was Yazhi. Yes. How long does it take for the DNA to reflect the movement? Oh yeah, it was Yazhi for sure. Yes. And why? Because some time ago, a few days ago, a week ago or so, I was talking to Yazhi about a certain sensation that I have. What that sensation was, it's not relevant now. Maybe I will share that conversation as a metaphysical chat sometime down the road, but not yet. It's going to be buried, among the material to be published, because it's not like a priority thing to share right now. But anyway, I shared with her a sensation that I have on the soul level. So yesterday or 2 days ago, I was asking, Yazhi, do you remember I had that sensation I was sharing with you? How long do you think that sensation that I received on the soul level gets reflected on the DNA level? Thank you very much, happy girl. How long does it take to be reflected on the DNA level in the physical? I mean, is it enough to just have a fleeting thought about something and right away that gets manifested in the DNA? Or do we have to be contemplating a certain thought for a very, very long time and make it part of us? So this is what Yazhi says. This is her answer. It depends on the strength of the stimuli. Stimuli meaning whatever is happening on your soul level, depending how strong it is, whatever it is you are doing on a soul level. For example, a highly traumatic event can be reflected onto the subject's DNA just about immediately, when other lesser events or much weaker stimuli need to be constantly reinforced in order for them to have an effect onto the subject's DNA. But in general, and as seen from the low and dense 3D realm of existence, something etheric will reflect onto the DNA with a lag, meaning it takes some time, depending on the strength of the signal, as I said above. So it's not just about, having an idea or two here and there and just going and then moving on with your life, forgetting about that, but making it part of yourself, integrating into you, and that for sure will reflect on the DNA. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here. We have been here for half an hour. I'm almost at the half of my notes. Okay, now an interesting point was mentioned where I was like, okay, Yazhi, why don't you just take a sample of Robert's DNA, because they still have no idea about Robert and who he is and who he was, nothing. Sometimes they can know that by interacting with the person. I mean, come on, especially we have been interacting for 5 years and they still don't know much about Robert. And that happens sometimes because it depends on so many different factors, if that person can be read or not. So I was like, okay, so how about if you just, send your drone down or something and take a sample from Robert, and then you can read more about him. And the interesting answer was that no, we can't, because that DNA will not be alive. And you cannot read these kinds of this kind of metaphysical information from the DNA that is just a sample. If the robot was in front of them, live, living, capturing the signal from the etheric side, that would be a living DNA, and then they could read this metaphysical information. But the DNA that is just there, sitting, taken from the as a sample, is not bringing in the signal anymore. So yes, you can read stuff from it, because the scientists, they do that. They can read stuff from the DNA, but not that metaphysical, deeper stuff. So that's interesting. That it has to be a living person. Robert, who is Robert? Robert is my work partner. He actually had this communication with the Taigetans and with Varu first. He met them first through another lady, and then he introduced me. We were friends in Spain. He is Spanish, and he introduced me a few weeks later. And we have had this communication together, and we are usually working together or talking to them together in servers. Where we meet. We always talk in Spanish. If Robert is present, if because he doesn't speak English, we always have to speak in Spanish. So then I have to translate the videos into English. So if you see any mistakes, that's just on me. That's the translation that I have done. Okay. So now DNA and reading past lives, talking about Robert and his past lives. Okay, so yes, you can read the past life from the DNA, but as Yazhi explains, you need to have a key. You need to have a base of previous comparisons, because the DNA is just frequency codes, moving, shifting codes. And you have to know which code, which numerical value associates itself with what to be able to read that. For example, if it's already established that Andromedans are 50.44950, then if you discover that number in the DNA, then you know, because you have a base of previous comparisons already done, then that person has been an Andromedan or is an Andromedan, etc. So everything pretty much can be read if you have those associations, if you can read the data. And that's the difficult part very often, because you need the associations. So everything depends on the precision of the data that you have previously. And it begins from the more general numbers. Like, for example, if you lived in ERRA, that would be 1,000. Very, very, very general examples like here. So 1,000. But then if you lived in ERRA for 5 years, that 5 years term will be like, okay, 1,000.550. So everything gets written into the DNA pretty much. Important things only get written into the DNA, but you have to be able to read that. So important point here, not everything gets registered in your DNA, only something that impacted you in the past. Something that was important to you, not every single detail, which I kind of thought that's how it was, that you can just like open it like a computer folder and just read everything that happened. But no, only the most important things get recorded. So it's all very interesting. And now add to this DNA reading of past lives the fact that if the DNA is a reflection of what's happening on the soul level, and knowing that soul is something where there are no past and future events, really, where the order and sequentiality and order of things is different, and everything is intertwined. Add to that all these different variants of yourself, alternate selves, loops that you are in, maybe some family members that you have been all that is you on the soul level. Everything is intertwined. So that somehow needs to be reflected also in your DNA. Whether you can read that or not, that's another topic, but it's somewhere there in your DNA. Um, so yeah, that kind of would complicate the reading of the DNA of your past life. Um, anyway, that's just like a side comment. Now, Dawn Elastic says it's a trap. What's a trap? Maybe I missed the conversation. Okay. Act Unify, what decides what is recorded at the DNA level? Well, you decide that. It's only you. DNA is you. There's no one else here that has any interference into what is written into your DNA or not. You yourself, with your ideas and the importance you give to those ideas, that's how it is decided what's going to be written or not. Okay, so now another topic, well, a topic that gave me much confusion was the topic of the ancestral DNA. I didn't understand that, and actually, and that was one of the topics that I went with different questions to this topic over and over again, and I'm still having doubts about it, to be honest. Okay, because if the DNA is you, if the DNA reflects what is you, so if they find something in your DNA, like for example, Matthias, my boyfriend, he is Finnish, and he says that in his family, there have been discovered some genetic links to the Viking line. Okay, well, does it mean that Matthias was a Viking because it's his in his DNA? Because it was said that DNA is you. Or does it have to do just with your ancestors, and how does that get into your DNA? So that part is a bit tricky for me to understand, but there are like different ways to look at this from how I see it. And this first point that I will mention is the best way that explains it to me. Because, okay, like I said, on the etheric side, everything is intertwined. All your past lives, all your variants, your relatives that have been you or that you will be, because it goes on the reverse too. We had a video about how the future influences the past. So you can be actually in your future, your grandparent in your future. You can like jump all over the place. So loops, no before or after. So DNA reflects all of that because in the end, we are all the people. We were all people. All of us who exist are past, future, and alternate lives of everyone else. And we are basically one person. The whole race, all Lyrians are basically just one person, one being. And then that Lyrian race, that one person, one being, also belongs to another conglomerate of collective beings that also will be a being. And so on, and so on, and so on. So all of that somewhere is in our DNA. It must be, logically, because if that's who we are on a higher level, so it has to be written into the details of our DNA somewhere there. And probably that's why stuff like Viking lines or whatever represents something for you, but maybe it doesn't necessarily mean that you have been there as your point of attention. But maybe some other point of attention was that is also you in some other way, because it's all intertwined in the etheric side, and the DNA is a reflection of the etheric side. So I know it's complicated. I know there are a lot of questions about this still, and I'm just like contemplating this topic with you to see how it fits with you, with what you think, and what conclusions you are drawing from all this. So it's all very, very, very interesting. Because, okay, here, Yazhi actually said this a few days ago. DNA is what is happening in the etheric side. Absolutely everything that has to do with you is being charged into your DNA. And all the DNA of any species is also loaded with the events of all the members of that species. And that in turn is also being manifested at a higher level, uniting all the species as well, as if each species were an individual. And all the collective of species were the species, for lack of another word. That's what she says here. Crazy, right? You can like go and meditate on these topics, and for sure more metaphysical conclusions will come up. Yes, thank you very much, Tammy, and many thanks to you, to all the moderators. So, okay. Now, about that question about the Matthias and Viking line and all that, there could be another explanation of why, for example, this is in his DNA, even though he hasn't lived it, so to speak. And this explanation is simpler. And it could be simply because he is a walking, which I do believe he is, and he entered the body that simply was the most compatible in frequencies and values for what represents him. So that will be a simpler explanation of why certain characteristics are in the DNA, even though you, in theory, haven't lived it. It's because you chose that body as you decided to walk in, and it best describes or fits and is compatible with who you believe you are. So that's another explanation. And now, another explanation of this whole ancestral thing of why, for example, there is a Viking line in the DNA of Matthias, as an example, or as it was mentioned in the video, Ireland. By the way, I don't have anything from Ireland as far as I know. It was just an example. If there is something found in my DNA that looks Irish, was I living in Ireland then? My ancestors, me? And this is now a very, very interesting explanation of this that I have never even thought it was possible. It's because, as Yazhi says, that Ireland frequency in the DNA could actually be ERRA, that is just misread on Earth. Because, as Yazhi says, in block, the frequencies resemble each other. In block, in general, in a broader reading, the frequencies resemble each other. So, for example, ERRA, because it is similar to Ireland in general context, might have a frequency, a general broad frequency number 80. So they would see that number in the DNA, 80, and that would be read as Ireland, even though you have never been there and you have nothing to do with Ireland. You could, but maybe not. Maybe it's ERRA. Now, to see the more detailed difference between ERRA and Ireland, because it is there, the difference is there, written in the DNA. You just have to know how to read it and enter into more details. So, for example, ERRA would be 80.555354. And Ireland would be 80.112. So you just have to be able to see those numbers in details. It's not that the DNA gets confused. No, it's the readings that we do that we confuse. We confuse that with ancestral DNA when it is not. So that is also super, super interesting, that explanation. But I'm sure this topic could be deepened, of course, more. And I know there are still a lot of questions about this that you have, that I have, and more could be explained here. Now, a fun fact on the side, as Yazhi said, ERRA and Ireland look similar. And that is because, and I like this expression, because they were manifested from the same initial fabric. from the same initial metaphysical fabric of planets. Even though, of course, there are planets that are very, very different from ERRA or from Earth, like Cindriel is very much different, but still there are planets that have characteristics in common, the same way as Illyrians. All of us here on Earth and in Pleiades and all other Illyrian races, we have characteristics in common. We have two legs, two arms, and one head. And that was because that's how we manifested from the etheric side. This is our blueprint. This is the model. So the same way with these planets, we shouldn't be surprised that ERRA is similar to some of the places on Earth because they were manifested from the same initial fabric, just like us, Lyrians, were manifested from the same initial fabric. So it's super interesting as well to think about that. Okay. Now, a new point. And a new thought, a new point. Walkings. They're walking souls. This is something I didn't understand also, and I was repeating the same question, like, yes, I don't understand. Why is my DNA showing something, of my Polish DNA or whatever? Sorry. If I walked in and, what do I have to do with my parent DNA? I mean, DNA supposedly reflects who I am. So, and Yazhi here was responding a few times this. She says, it's because when you are walking into your previously chosen avatar on Earth, the frequencies are adapted technologically. Your DNA actually gets moved. It gets moved to be able to be tuned to the incoming walk-in soul. So it is either done by the positive grace, the gardeners, who are doing this procedure on you, on the mother before you get born, or on you. And this happens when you are not coming in here through the immersion, but through the soul, through the source. If you are coming straight from the source, you don't have technological adjustment by the immersion pod. So the grays do that job. They adjust and move your DNA. Or you can be a walking coming through the immersion, and this way the immersion pod, the immersion technology does that technological invasive, so to speak, alteration of the DNA for you. So this way you fit into that family. Okay, so, and Yazhi gave a funny example. It's like, for example, imagine you are a liver cell. You are a liver cell, but you come in to have a lung experience. So in that sense, you will be a liver starseed in the lung world. But something has to be adjusted in you to be able to fit into the lung environment. So in that sense, you don't have to have any similarity of frequency or DNA to your parents or to your family, because it is done technologically, that amalgamation of frequencies, tuning. And when you walk in, just talking about the walkings here, as you walk in, you begin to interpret the memories of the person you enter, because you are entering that person's DNA and you are interpreting that person's DNA memories. That's what you are reading. So in a way, you inherit all the memories and all that person's stuff that was not yours. But in the process, you also become that person. You become that person. You somehow integrate all that person was and is into your being. That's how it is. Now, this is pretty brave, I think, for the souls who are coming in this way, because you need to kind of let go of your sense of strict identity that you had in 5D. Okay, you are an extraterrestrial person and you decide to come in here through the immersion. You accept that with that decision comes having to integrate another person's memory into you, and you will carry that with you forever. It's not like you can disconnect. Well, actually, if you, let's say, wake up if you die here and you wake up in the pod, then those memories will be like a kind of like a, yeah, I remember that, but it's kind of like a more distant memories. Like you were waking up from a dream and you remember that. More distant memories. But for example, if you walked in through the immersion and you don't die here, but you get extracted, then you totally carry that person's memories with you and it has to be integrated into your being. So it's brave. It's brave for the people to do that. And I'm in immersion myself. And with that, I do recognize that I had to be brave on some level to decide to just like jump into Gosia and inherit all her stuff. And that's going to be with me forever now. It's going to be part of me. As Yazhi says, it's an enriching experience to the growth of my soul. Now, Gosia is part of my soul. I am as that Taigetan stellar person, and I will recover the memories at some point, but memories of Gosia will be with me as well. So it's very interesting. Now, okay. Now, talking about inheriting the memories and downloading the memories from someone else, like when you walk into the person and through the immersion, so you inherit the memories through the DNA of that person. That phenomenon is not actually exclusive just to immersions. It's not such a big deal because actually, I don't know if you remember the video on etheric implants. This happens on a soul level in the afterlife. Souls do this very commonly when they are in the afterlife. They go and they download from the etheric field whatever they need for their future context. So if they want to be born into a different race, for example, well, they are downloading a certain context so they know more or less how to operate within that new world they are going into. Or maybe an ability. Maybe they want to know how to play the piano. So they're kind of like download to themselves that ability. Yes, it is possible, and souls do that. It's called etheric memory implants, and it's done naturally. No one enforces that on you. It's you do that on your soul level. So if you are interested in this, also go to etheric memory implants videos or transcript. That's very interesting. Someone says, no memories of a childhood and adolescence here. That to me suggests a walk-in, though it is known that false memory implantation exists. Well, if you are walking in, you will have memories because you will inherit the memories from that person. But yeah, they could be like faded or maybe not clear or not important enough. It depends on each person. In my case, I do remember stuff from my childhood and from my Polish life. I do remember, but it does feel very strange to me when I go there. It's like, and I actually felt that long before I knew even about the immersions. And that's why this immersion thing, it makes sense to me because I always felt like I'm there and I'm recognizing everything, remembering, but I feel like I'm interpreting that memory through some kind of a filter. Like I downloaded this literally into myself. Like I'm walking, like I'm watching everything through the glasses of someone else. And that someone and those glasses give me a certain identity feeling of that specific person there in Poland that I'm supposed to be, but it's like something I'm putting on myself, like another layer of myself that is supposed to be me, but it's not. So that's the feeling I have about this. Hi. Some questions that I'm not able to answer right now, right away. Yeah, I'll just continue with my points and look at the chat maybe a bit later. So that's about the immersed memories and whatever. I mean, immersed people and memories and how you inherit things. Now, another interesting point here is about DNA and your other selves, your alternate selves. Because the idea came to me as I was talking to Yazhi. I was like, okay, if the DNA is a reflection of who I am, and what my soul is. And as we know, the soul isn't just one point of attention, but it can encompass many. Thank you very much, Wonder Shami. If my soul encompasses many points of attentions, many katras, many, variants of myself, well, whatever is happening there, does it also get written into my DNA here, for example? Because it's also what my soul is doing, but through my other self. So that should be reflected in the DNA. And Yazhi says, well, yes, it does get reflected in the DNA. And I was like, okay, but that complicates the reading. Because if you want to read your own DNA and you want to know what you went through at your past life, now you have to, on top of that, somehow distinguish what your other you did. So that's complicated. But Yazhi here explained that whatever happened in the past life or in the alternate self life, it is kept there in the DNA, but a little further away. So, as she explains, the experience of the body, what you went through, is very much reflected at the cellular level in the mitochondrial DNA, and that of past or alternate lives is read as further back in the nuclear DNA. Okay, so at least there's a way to somehow distinguish if you went through that or maybe it's something more further in your other self. Anyway, thank you for being here with me and enduring all these contemplative thoughts and ideas. And if someone now came into this room, to this video and this live, as someone who is like totally unaware of any metaphysical ideas, they'll be like, really, that sounds, everything we talk about here is that sounds so out there and crazy. All right. Thank you very much, Ben, for being here. If you have to go, well, thank you very much and see you next time. Okay. Oh, and also an interesting point. When Yazhi said that is why many times places or people could be familiar to you. That's also because maybe it was written on your DNA. It's somehow you are drawn to that because maybe it's some other you is having an intense, important experience with that place, and somehow it leaks here to you. Like, for example, I have this drawing. No, I had this calling to go to Mongolia for a very long time. Like something is calling me, Mongolia, and Gobi Desert and all that. And I have no idea why. I was even asking them, like, did you have any contact with Mongolia, with those areas? Is it important for you? No, they don't know. But maybe it's something that my other self is doing, and maybe it's having some kind of a very strong, powerful, mystical, intense experiences, and it's passing through to me here to go there as well and to experience that as well. So anyway, it's super fascinating, all this. Now, okay, let's talk about this protective, I don't know how to say it. I don't know if I said it correctly in the video. Sheath or sheath. I'm not sure. I should actually check it online how to say it. Let's check it together. Pronunciation for sheath. No, but that's wrong because what? Okay, so it is sheath. I thought it was sheath. Okay. Sheath. Okay. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this protective DNA sheath that gets destroyed and damaged through the alteration. And I'm going to also share with you a little conversation we just had with Athena, yes, about how to repair it, if it's possible to repair it, and how to repair it, what she said about this. But basically, this protective sheath is some kind of a protective layer over the DNA. So when the DNA is activated, that sheath is removed and the gene is turned on. So here, as she says, seen from another angle, The etheric spirit side emits a complex signal that activates and deactivates the DNA like playing the keys of a piano. So when it gets activated, that sheath is removed. And that protective layer is similar to the myelin that covers neurons. Some sort of protective layer that covers neurons. And now, important, monosodium glutamate, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly too, I'm not checking it. Monosodium glutamate in processed foods attacks and deteriorates this myelin layer that protects both the neurons and the DNA. And why is that important? Because when it attacks that protective layer is removed, but in a semi-activated way that is very chaotic and contradictory. It's when it happens naturally, that layer is removed in a harmonious and ordered and balanced way and gets activated. But when it gets damaged artificially from the external, source, like by food poisoning or something, then it gets removed, that sheath, and whatever gets activated is very uneven. It's chaotic. It's not supposed to be this way. It's like, when you're trying to work with the wires that have short circuits and things like that. And that's why we have also a lot of these problems, nervous system problems, etc. So how is it possible to protect yourself from that artificial disturbances to the DNA damage and the DNA protective shield damage? Well, I'm going to quote the conversation with Athena, but first, yes, he says here, the mental strength is very important. You have to protect, you have to be sure that you don't let yourself be affected by the 3D dominant frequencies, ideas, and perceptions where they want to pull you. And that conserves your DNA. So your health, physical health, but above all, your mental strength, not to be influenced. Stay in your bubble, stay in your reality, and don't be influenced by everything that is happening here in this world that is trying to pull you down into their 3D reality. And that's going to conserve your DNA. That's one. And here we had the conversation with Athena. Is it possible to repair the damaged shield? If that protective layer, myelin, is damaged, is it possible to regenerate it? Okay, so Athena says this, basically, do not consume any monosodium glutamate, and ideally do not consume any chemicals in food. Of course, nothing processed or as little as possible. So also reducing the amount of sugars and carbohydrates to a minimum, as well as anything that improves the metabolism and in general physical condition. That is improving the health of the whole body, since everything is connected. Okay, well, but does this regenerate that protective shield of the DNA? She says, yes, it regenerates it. But more than anything else, you have to stay away from everything that deteriorates it in the first place, including, for example, heavy metals. In this case, I should refer to the mercury amalgams or amalgams with mercury. I think it's the same thing, but that's how I got it translated from Spanish. That many people have in their mouths because they are constantly bringing it out, it leaks out, and they are slowly poisoning themselves with them. Now, okay, I'm going to come back to this point, but first I'm asking a question. Do you know how long the regeneration lasts if you stay away from all these things you're mentioning completely? How long does it take to regenerate that DNA protective shield? And Athena says, thank you very much, Jaime. There is no way to know because it depends on the damage, the diet, the recurrence, and each individual. But nerve cells do take longer than other cells to regenerate in general. And here Robert is asking, I don't understand, but mercury in the teeth, it is already in a solid state, isn't it? Why is it causing damage? And she says, well, no, because it is not only mercury, it is only a component of the metallic compound of amalgams. It leaches out little by little. However, and now interesting point, when it is time to remove them, it is when more mercury is released by the extraction process itself when you're trying to replace them with ceramic amalgams. So is it better to leave them in your mouth? I asked this, and she says, this has been investigated. Thank you very much, Brad. This has been investigated very recently in the laboratories here. They investigated this, just this point, about taking out the mercury amalgams from your mouth. It was investigated by Riss and Eridania. Riss is a new scientist on board. Not so new, I think he arrived last year, but relatively new. Riss and Eridania. And we don't have an exact answer yet. Are you there? Because the chat disappeared. Okay, sorry, it just suddenly got quiet in the chat. Okay, maybe you were listening. So, when we don't have the exact answer, because if I don't see the letters moving, I feel something is wrong. Okay, never mind. We don't have the exact answer yet. It may be actually better to leave them if they don't give problems. Interesting. But I don't give a definite answer on that yet. So they are looking into this. I hope maybe when they have some kind of a definite answer on this, if they do, I'll be able to share that. And now Robert asked a question that was kind of innocent, but well, he asked this: how come the dentists didn't know that mercury is so harmful? And Athena says, for me, it is an agenda. Mercury is known to be highly toxic. The problem with it is that it is lipophilic. This means that it has an affinity for sticking to tissues with a high concentration of fat, such as the brain, thus damaging it, and there is no way to remove it, as with all heavy metals. Just wait, I'll respond that specific point. The artificial elimination processes are slow and with doubtful results because even in the best procedures, a strong amount of heavy metals, such as mercury, will be cleaned from the body. However, it will remain in the fatty tissues, and there is no way to remove that. I said, there is no way to remove heavy metals? And she says, well, yes, there is. It will be removed from the blood, but those that are already inside the cells remain there. It reduces it. It reduces it, but it doesn't remove completely. I mean, the process of removing the heavy metals reduces it, but it doesn't remove it totally, much less from the cells. Even so, I do recommend doing everything possible to eliminate it. Yes, of course. But the truth is that although it hurts, it cannot be removed from certain areas, such as the brain. So that's what she said here. And it's going to be interesting to know the results of that laboratory investigation they are doing on these amalgams. Right, Charlie. Dentists also say brush with fluoride. Yeah. Okay. Thomas Sanik, I don't know, can these injections, what they give you in dentist, harm you, these pain reducers? You know, maybe, but at the same time, it's impossible to go to the dentist and not have some sort of anesthesia done to you, which, by the way, and I told this story in the Spanish world as well, when I was growing up in Poland, we were under communism until 1990. Well, I was 13 years old then. But before that, and a little bit after that as well, when you go to the dentist, there was no anesthesia. They were all just public dentists, and they didn't have that available. And then slowly it was coming in, and you had to like pay extra for it. It was expensive. But in the beginning, all the kids, we all went into to the dentist without any anesthesia done. That's just, it was such a torture. It's such a trauma for me. So I do remember that. So my point is, whatever, if it's harmful or not, maybe it is. I don't know exactly. I assume it might be, yes. But can you go to the dentist without the anesthesia if you have to do something? I wouldn't be able to. Okay, so now two more points, and then we can finalize the live. Oh yeah, I think I did say that about the parental DNA. Okay, yeah, like why is our DNA similar to the DNA of our parents if we are walking? I think I mentioned this, yes, but let me just say this in a few sentences. If you are a technological walking, your DNA doesn't have to be related at all. It's adjusted technologically to the DNA of your family that is technologically coupled with the frequency of the DNA of your family. Or if you are born from the source, yes, your DNA has to do with your parents or your family because you are kind of part of the same group. Usually that's how it happens. You are born from the source into that family because somehow on a soul level you are connected. You are one being above. And she gave that example of the fingers, like one finger, second, they are all individual or like organs within the body. They all have their functions, their role, and their reality. But they are all part of the same body, of the same hand. So it's the same with your family, in a way. Okay, so the last important point is that someone was asking, give us a history of how our DNA was cut into two strands. And the Yazhi says nothing was cut out of your DNA. Not artificially. That's not how it was done, because the DNA is always a reflection of the dominant consciousness on a collective and individual level. So how it was done is by sleeping your consciousness. So by sleeping your consciousness, by putting to sleep your consciousness, by imposing the beliefs and ideas that put your consciousness to sleep, that's how you sleep the DNA, how you put to sleep the DNA. So by making the people in the matrix dormant on their mind level, that's how the DNA got dormant, but it wasn't cut out. And the best example for this is the fact that it's still there. It's all there, right? The junk DNAs, even the scientists here can see there's something there. So it wasn't cut out, it was just put to sleep. And how it is done is by mental control. But it's all there, ready to be revealed when you expand. So that's basically it. There are so many other points, and they were super interesting, of course, as well. And I'm sure that you got out of those videos more other points that were not mentioned here by me. Okay, but I hope that maybe I was able to cement some of the major ideas, major as I perceive them to be. So many things change our DNA, Tracy. Yes, that's correct. Okay, Laura is asking, I don't understand the walkings, why they can just be born as a baby like everyone else. They can, and they are born as babies very often. Yes, that's why their mother is abducted many times, because her DNA needs to be adjusted to the DNA of an incoming soul, a starseed. But many times a starseed doesn't want to go through the whole experience of growing up and being a baby and being a toddler and playing with crayons. Like they have something to do. Like they're going to skip that. So they're going to walk into the body of a person where maybe that soul is done already and wants to move on, and they have got out of this experience what they want, and they want to move. So they have an agreement, an exchange. One soul gets out, the other soul gets in. Or you can walk into the avatar of the matrix person that was completely soulless, like a program. And then you enter into that program, you become that person now with a soul. So there are different varieties of coming in to the earth experience. It's not just this or that. There are different variations here, okay, of possibilities. As I said, I am not an expert on this subject, so many questions that I see here, I'm not able really to answer. We will have to have their assistants here with us to fully to give you an answer. Or I will have to think about some of the answers. Like, for example, Michael is asking, how does the DNA relate to a pre-birth agreement? I have to think about that one. Exactly. I don't think how it relates. I don't know how it relates, if it does. Anyway, see, I have to think about this. I'm not able to like give a right away answer. Okay. Jaime, how do we integrate with the awareness that we are all people and our individuality at the same time without going crazy? Well, that's why we have a veil of forgetfulness to keep us within a certain parameters and range and frame of identity, because otherwise it could be overwhelming, and many people do end up you know I do believe that many people who are actually in mental institutions, they are like people who are actually picking up all this metaphysical stuff, but they were just like not able to integrate it or stabilize themselves within that perception. Well, that's why we have the body and the brain to keep us within certain limits, certain line, because it could be overwhelming to us. Yes, but I think as you slowly expand, it's you become accustomed to these ideas and perceptions, and um, it becomes part of you naturally. I think you naturally grow into it. So don't worry too much about this. Yeah, I could talk more about this. This could be a separate topic in itself. Thank you very much, Mick Flair, and everybody else. Happy Girl and Lyrian versus the Matrix. I'm saying hello to the moderators, but also to everybody else. I don't know what causes the blood type to change. I don't know. Interesting. You're welcome, Happy Girl. Thank you very much, everybody, for your contributions there. Economic contributions. Yes. Do blood transfusions change DNA? I have some information about the blood transfusions and organ donating and what happens then to the receiver. I have to put it in some mini topics at some point. I promise I will. It's somewhere there. I know I have it, but on top of my head, I'm not sure. Let me just see. No, I don't see anybody available right now online that I could ask. But maybe leave some of these questions in a comment section below this live, because here it's gonna disappear. I'm not gonna be able to get that. Maybe so. Leave some of these questions in the comment section, and I will pick it up, and not all of them, because it's impossible always to answer all the questions. Okay. But that question is interesting about the blood and the DNA and all that. Thank you very much, everybody. Edo from the ghetto. Edo from the ghetto. Do solar flares change DNA? The same. Write that comment if you remember under the video. I might pass it on to Yazhi, okay? As I said in the beginning, I don't think I'm going to be able to answer these questions because I don't fully understand this topic myself. It's all new. I'm learning as you go, okay? Thank you very much, Ali Pasha, as well. Thank you for your openness. And everybody who is watching the chat, everybody who is not watching the chat, someone has asked me about the curtains behind me. Well, this is actually Matthias's curtain. This is Spartan. It's just divided in two but there is like a Spartan logo there, and he has bought all kinds of Spartan featured details for the apartment. So I inherited these curtains here. That's what it is. Thank you very much, Michael Creon, as well. So next video, actually, it's not going to be about the DNA itself, but it's going to be DNA related. And that's going to be about the genome, human genome, a conversation between Robert and Yazhi about that. And there's also going to be a short video about hybridization, about hybrids. Thank you very much, Victor McKenney. And also, I have a conversation between Dale Harder and Anneka. It's a older conversation about some ancient things. And of course, we have to continue with the video, with a series of the ships, the interstellar life. And the next video in that series will be about the flying discs, you know, those typical discs that are seen or have been seen. They haven't been seen for a while, actually. There's a reason for that. So I'm going to share with you that information, whether they are still in use, do they like them, etc. Okay. I also have a small historical series with several videos. Like, for example, of course, I have been talking about this for a while. Titanic, what happened there. Iraq, information about Iraq, something there. Portals. Then Vlad and vampires. Yes, vampires are actually real, but not exactly as we are, explained by Hollywood. Yeti is real as well, and also some sort of incident in Russia between with Yeti. Also, soul fragmentation. That's just another really great metaphysical video that you're going to love. How soul fragments itself and how actually this soul reality works. Because the soul, I'm just going to give you a little aperitif, is not just this one point of attention and then like a line, but actually it can split based on certain ideas it has within itself. Maybe it wants to experience this or experience that, and it goes into a different way, different separate ways. But those two different points of attention, new ones, will have same memory of being that first base person. And that's why many people can actually have the same memories of having been the same person in the past. That's just so amazing, because I always imagined it's just like, okay, if someone claims to be Napoleon, there can only be one person that claims that. But no, actually, there could be many people who have memories of being Napoleon, or being whoever. So that happens because of soul fragmentation. And on the opposite side, there is also a soul fusion. Many points of attention becoming one person. So that's going to be really cool, a metaphysical conversation there. And well, a lot of stuff. I hope you are subscribed to the Yazhi Swaruu channel. For the people who are new, I am doing this work in English. I'm also doing this in Spanish. Robert is doing this in Spanish. But apart from that, individually, Yazhi Swaruu, who is on board of Toleka as well, is sharing her videos done by herself. She writes this information herself and she makes the videos herself. Her channel is called Swaruu Official. Maybe someone can put the link in the chat. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ila Mantila. And there you receive direct information from someone who is actually on board ship. First ever official YouTube channel done by someone from Toleka. And then the second one is Zael. It's called Za''L, a YouTube channel. If someone can publish that as well. So that's Zael and Arian. They are a couple. They are young Taigetan couple who just arrived from Taigeta, even though Zael did live on Earth for a while. I'm not sure about Arian. And they are also, thank you very much, Eva Carolina. And they are also sharing information and whatever inspires them to share and to transmit to the people directly. So there you have no me, no Robert, you have like direct video done by them. So we appreciate them very much. Greetings to you, by the way, if anybody is there. It always makes me nervous when I realize someone might be watching right now on the ship. They actually told us once that sometimes they do watch like lives and videos, and they put them on a big screen. They have like this big screen, and they're all watching it together. So when I have this vision of them, sitting there in their entertainment room and watching me on Earth at the same time, kind of amazing. Okay. Mariusz Sadowski, pozdrawiam z Polski, pozdrawiam z Finlandii. Greetings from Finland. That was in Polish. So let's see, what else do we have here? Siren of the Void. Has there been talk of Alcyone? No, nothing. Nothing new on Alcyone. Everything is pretty much in peace, sort of, like nothing major is happening. But also, you have to understand we don't always know everything, because there are different reasons why we cannot know every single detail. Okay, well, I should be going, but I'm like taking this opportunity to maybe respond some questions since I'm here. I don't do these lives very often, but nothing more on the DNA. Okay, if you are here for the DNA information, that's done. I'm just like answering random questions right now. If I see anything, if anybody else wants to hang out. Let's see. Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much, Alexis, who says I look nice with my hair off my face. Yeah, let's see what happens. Thomas, can you ask for targetants about CBD oils? Yeah. They don't know everything always on every specific topic. So yeah, leave the questions in the comments, because that's where I usually go to pick up some questions sometimes, because we are so saturated with questions. And when we are talking to them, it's not like we can just be passing questions all the time, because that would be just too overwhelming. They are our friends, and we are just like talking to them on a friends level as well. Like, for example, recently, I'm not going to go into the detail, but recently they had a problem with one of their cats who is a little bit problematic. So we talked about that, about possible solutions to the situation. So it's not like I can just go in and, okay, answer that question and this and that. Yeah. Thank you very much, Madeline. Very cool curtains from Matthias. Well, actually, I'm thinking of changing them, because, I mean, they're a bit wrinkled. I don't feel like ironing it. It's just hanging there. And I have been seeing them for a while, and maybe I should buy some new ones with a different color, because this is my new setup now. By the way, yes, this is my setup for lives. Do you remember how when I was doing lives, the camera was shaking sometimes? It's because I was doing lives or interviews from my couch always. I didn't have a desk. So this week I bought a desk. For the first time, I have a small little desk, and I have this set up with a microphone here, and a new webcam from Miko. Thank you very much. So this is going to be my new studio. So this is going to be the setup now. And I have the light, as you see, the round light. Oh, Mick, does it help when I publish different time zones on Facebook for your live chats? Yes, it does help. Thank you very much. I did notice that you were doing that. Because, yeah, I usually publish the time for the Finland, but then, different time zones, that's different hours. So it helps. Yeah, thank you very much. All right. Oh, let's see. There was some question there. Oh, no, I don't have any news on CBDC. Fair, no. BRIC Alliance, I don't have any information about that either. If I did have information about something like that, like world events, I would probably publish it fast or pretty fast. So if there's nothing, there's nothing. Thank you very much, Sauli. I will pass you greetings to Matthias and Miko. Thank you very much. I think we did talk about chemtrails. Someone is asking about the video on chemtrails. It's not like we had a specific video on chemtrails, but chemtrails were mentioned in more than one video. So again, you have to go to the website and put the word chemtrails into the search, and the specific transcript will come up with that specific information. I'm gonna run now because you're asking me questions that I don't have the answers, and I feel pretty embarrassed about that. And I don't want to disappoint you, so I'm just going to disappear on a good note before I make a fool of myself. I don't even know that answer. Can they communicate with their cats? And if so, what are they saying? Not to the level like we imagine communicating like totally. Yeah, they have some sort of telepathic communication, maybe stronger than here, but not totally. I don't know what they are saying. Have anyone talked about sequential and simultaneous incarnation? Well, I think we did mention that here and there. Yes. Yeah, I don't know exactly if I am understanding your question correctly, but simultaneous incarnation, yeah, we can totally be born into the same time frame at the same time because we are born from the etheric field where there is no sequence. So the soul can just choose to hop anywhere it wants. So you can be talking to your other you in the same room. I'm not sure if that's what you mean with simultaneous incarnation. That's how I understand it. But yeah, these kinds of phenomena are known more in 5D outside Earth. Uh, That's a good advice. The Tibetans should ask the Urmas for advice on how to handle their cat issues. Very good advice. Hey guys, on Toleka, if you are listening, perhaps one of the Urmas can give you an advice. Or maybe even better, I have something better. Maybe the Urma can help you talk to that problematic cat. Maybe they have a better telepathic communication with them than you do. And maybe he can try to like reason with the cat or maybe try to understand it. So you have Urma friends, maybe one of them can help you. Yes, good idea. Will you write a book on the information learned? Tracy is asking. We because it's me and Robert. Yes, we would like that, but we don't have time. And there's just so much information. Wouldn't be just one book. It would be like so many different books depending on the topics. Like for example, just stellar navigation or manifestation, mechanics of manifestation, or biology, or extraterrestrial reality, and things. You'll be divided by different topics, but we don't have time. So now I'm dedicated just to passing the information as much as I can through the videos and through the transcripts. And maybe at some point in the future, when I have nothing left to publish, maybe then I will have time. Nomad. Hi, Gosia. I'm happy to participate in the first live. Well, hi and welcome. Glad to have you here as well, if it's your first live, especially. Oh, Bent is back. Interesting about the Urma cats. Well, yes. Thank you very much, Ido from the ghetto. All right. Urma YouTube channel, Cat says. That's true. However, and now this is going to sound totally surrealistic, but keep in mind that they don't have hands or fingers. They have paws. So they are not able to type as other Lyrians races can. Of course, there may be other technologies, speech to text or something they would have to come up with, or maybe they would need help of someone who can type, but they couldn't type themselves. Kessa is asking, what do you think about MyHeritage DNA harvesting? I don't know exactly what that is, like specifically, but it was mentioned in one of those videos about DNA, about sending your DNA to the companies especially if it's something to do with something official, that it's not advisable to do that because they are collecting it for the wrong reasons. But anyway, it depends on you and how important it is for you to know more about yourself, so about your priorities here in this situation. But I don't know exactly about that specific program. Okay, I'm gonna go because we've been here, well, an hour and a half, more than an hour and a half. I'm starting to lose a little bit my voice, a little bit. I feel like it's affected. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm gonna leave, but thank you very much for being here with me. Who knows when the next live will be? It has to be something interesting and important for me to take this time and transmit to you whatever I need to transmit. So this is it, okay, guys? I'm gonna end. I'm going now to say hello to Bongo, my dog, who is alone all this time. Let's see what she's up to. Thank you very much. A lot of greetings, a lot of hugs to the entire planet and beyond. Thank you for your support always. I will see you very, 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 very soon in the next video. Bye bye, everybody.